Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast, where we sit down and dissect the latest and the greatest in film. I'm Dan Allen Movies, joined as always by Marshall on Film Jackson, the man with a couple of films on that watch list. He's been a little bit sick, but you're with us now, Jackson. How you feeling?
Feeling like I need a stiff drink to really give Mank the credit he deserves. Dan Allen Movies, what was that voice you were just putting on for our listeners, our viewers, for those playing at home?
What voice are you talking about, Jackson? This is my voice.
You're sounding like you could be a part of one of Orson Welles' radio plays from back in the day. Maybe from War of the Worlds, perhaps.
Have you seen the original War of the Worlds?
Well, I don't know about the original War of the Worlds. I mean, I know there was an adaptation maybe in the 50s that was colorized. And then there's Spielberg's adaptation starring Tom Cruise and I think it was Dakota Fanning. That was maybe like 2005. But if you're referring to Orson Welles' production, that was a radio play. And in fact, that radio play was so successful, people were spooked so much by it, that pretty much spawned Orson Welles to then go on and end up with total creative freedom at RKO Pictures to do Citizen Kane. But that's a story for another time.
I know you're trying to bring it back to Mank, but I was actually talking about the 1953, The War of the Worlds. Byron Haskin directed that one. Can't say I've seen it.
No, but sounds like IMDb has, and thank God it exists.
Thank God for IMDb. If you want to sponsor us, IMDb, we're open for business, aren't we? All right, Jackson.
If it's not IMDb, it can be Rotten Tomatoes. If it's not Rotten Tomatoes, it can be Metacritic. And God forbid, it will never be Letterboxd.
No. Hey, did you do your top 20, or what was it, 2020 year in review on Letterboxd? Did you get that email?
No, I don't believe I did get that email. I might have, several hundred fan mails, maybe even several thousand fan mails. A lot of hate mail too to shuffle through. And 2021, it's going to be the year of positivity. If you send me hate mail, I'm not going to read it.
A lot of hate mail, Jackson. If anyone's getting hate mail out of you and me about our reviews, it's me. For all the shit I have done over our 50-plus episodes. Jackson, what are we reviewing today?
I don't know what you're referring to, Dan. Maybe the A24 fanboys coming with their pitchforks and torches.
Before I'm going to cut you off here. My
Perfect,
2020
thanks.
film by the numbers. Logged films, 162 films. Films reviewed, 406. So I went back and did some old ones. 315 hours watched. Most watched actor, Adam Sandler.
You could have at least let me guess it.
Oh, sorry. Most watched director. Who is it?
Ooh.
Mank?
That's a really good. Oh, there you go. Well, it has to be Orson Welles. No, it's David Fincher.
David Fincher. Highest rated film of 2020, Jackson. Take a punt. Be real tough, this one.
The Prestige?
Tenant. So there you go. Year in review. Check it out if you've got a Letterboxd account and follow me and Jackson. With that being said...
Don't follow the podcast, though, because why would we want anyone to do that?
No, I just completely forgot about that one. You can also follow the podcast. Jackson, Mank.
Do you want to keep using the word bank?
Jackson. I don't want to say a word that rhymes with Mank because that could be awkward. Talk to me about Mank.
Well, it's all a bit of a wank, isn't it?
Budum-tsh.
Can we get a trailer roll, some B-roll going here?
Oh, I'm drunk. The end.
End credits.
And then you hear me. All right, come on.
1930s Hollywood is reevaluated through the eyes of scathing social critic and alcoholic screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz as he races to finish the screenplay of Citizen Kane for Orson Welles. Tell me, Dan, your experience watching Mank. What homework had you done going in to see this latest feature from Mr. David Fincher?
My homework was extensive. I downloaded Citizen Kane, got ready to watch it, and never did, and then ended up watching Mank. So I haven't watched Citizen Kane. Call me a movie fan. Call me a movie critic no longer. It's a bit of a
Did
sin.
anyone call you a movie critic?
No, no one did. I'm self-proclaimed. Um, yeah, look, I I actually wanted a different perspective than you because you went in watching it and you even said, why don't you just go and watch it without it and we'll have different takes. Unfortunately, I probably needed that context of that movie because I didn't follow a lot of what was going on in this picture. I will say technically it was astounding, even though he didn't use, it was digitally made, so it was a digital camera. It wasn't shot on film, which I think that's a missed opportunity for a film like this. But besides that, I mean, the sound, it transports you, the look of it, the black and white. It seems it's not just like a LUT or a color grade. It's more than that. There's attention to detail, and just the composition. Technically it's marvelous, but in terms of the story and the overall pacing, very slow. And general audiences won't get longer than 20 minutes into this without turning it off, especially Netflix fans. And I'm surprised that Netflix greenlit this one for David. And I actually now realize why this picture didn't get made all those years ago, because he wanted this to be made, but no studios will pick it up from what I researched. So it makes sense now because it is a bold picture. And even though he had made Seven and all those other, I think he'd made Fight Club at the time when he pitched this, I wouldn't, as an investor or as a studio head, I wouldn't have greenlit this because it's not very accessible. Your thoughts, Jackson?
Jeez, there's a lot to digest there, a lot to
No,
unpack.
just take your time. We've got all the time in the world.
Perfect. Thank you, mate. Look, couple points here, Dan. Yes, David Fincher had wanted to direct this script, which was written by his late father, Jack Fincher, who passed away in 2003.
Oh, really? That long ago?
Really, that long ago. So as rumor has it, David Fincher had this film slated to be shot after The Game was released, The Game starring Michael Douglas. And
okay, yeah. I got to see that.
Star, yeah, me too. Meant to be very good. You'll like it. It's one of those thrillers with a big twist to it, very similar to something like The Gift.
Ooh, Joel.
Yeah, I know you're hooked now. Your man. So, set to star at the time, Kevin Spacey and Jodie Foster, which, considering we have Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried, Lily Collins, and everyone else in the cast, would have been a very different movie back in 1997, 1998. I've got to correct you here. This would have been shot before Fight Club, and who knows? Given that we might have had Mank back then, would we have gotten Fight Club at all? That's a story for it and a debate for another time.
Wow.
It wasn't shot, again, rumor has it, because David Fincher insisted it had to be shot black and white. And digital film, digital movies, well, it didn't really take over until the early 2000s when we had things like Michael Mann's Collateral and the Star Wars prequels. Considering David Fincher's notorious perfectionist attitude and taking dozens, if not hundreds of takes at times, like truly rivaling Stanley Kubrick for the amount of takes this guy has, how expensive it is to shoot on film. Could you imagine just the budget getting blown out here? Like, we would have had millions upon millions upon millions of miles of film.
We're exactly why.
Apocalypse Now levels of film reel getting left over.
That's exactly why it was shot digitally, because he's just a perfectionist and he'll shoot 80 takes and use take 3. It's a bit ridiculous. It is a bit ridiculous, but you got to love him. He loves it.
You do have to love him. Back to Mank, without talking about too many of the technical aspects. Yes, it is gorgeous to look at. Yes, it does remind you of a movie from the 30s and 40s. And it's not just the look, it's not just the cinematography, but even the sound work, the sound editing and the mixing. It's all composed on one single track, just like Citizen Kane was way back when in the early 40s and all the movies from that time of the golden age of Hollywood. Be it the Foley work, be it the soundtrack, be it the dialogue, everything here in Mank is on the one soundtrack, and it helps to immerse you in the world of 1930s Hollywood. Does it help you to care? Well, we can get into it here on the episode, because it sounds like that my cohort here, Dan Allen Movies, is probably going to disagree with me just how much we really gave a damn about these characters in this story, although I still can't really hold this film in the highest regard.
It's
It's
not.
interesting. It's interesting that David Fincher did get this made. I mean, if he's going to put his name on anything now, be it a TV series, was he has produced Mindhunter for Netflix. The guy brings a heck of a lot of clout, and if he wants to go out there and make a movie for 20 or 30 million, that's the reported budget that released in 2020 wasn't going to get a shot at cinemas anyway. I mean, why not? Who cares? Like at the least, this thing is going to be Oscar nominated, and I still see it being a strong contender, but it's not going to win Best Picture.
Look,
It's fine.
yeah.
It's fine. I'm hearing critics are either loving it or saying it's underwhelming. It's fine. There's a lot of smart talk and sharp talk. I think Amanda Seyfried's character Marion Davies, who Susan Alexander Kane from Citizen Kane was supposedly based off, she has this great quote about midway through the movie where she says that at this dinner where Herman Mank is drinking and Hurst and some other characters that she
When is
struggles
he
to
not
keep up.
drinking?
Very true. She struggles to keep up with a lot of the smart talk, the sharp talk, and that's all it really comes to. It's very witty, it's entertaining, but the narrative just chops and changes, and it's very much meant to be in the style of Citizen Kane. Yet it's lacking. There's not enough going on here for us to really sink our teeth
So you
into.
do
It's not
agree with
gripping
me?
enough.
Yeah.
I do. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of elements here that I like. Gary Oldman as Bank is fantastic. It's hard to imagine any other actor in this role. Gary Oldman nowadays is in his 60s. There's no effort here when he's playing Mank to be a man in his 40s or even earlier when they're shooting some of the stuff from the 1930s to then be in his 30s. Yet he just slips into this character so well, so brilliantly. Charles Dance as Randolph William Hearst in the brief scenes he has is very imposing. So he's another memorable character. And everyone else plays their role quite okay. Tom Burke showing up as an Orson Welles impersonation, not a bad impression. Not too many people have played Orson Welles on screen. I think Vincent D'Onofrio is another actor I can't think of. So he does okay to be such a legendary and controversial figure. But at the end of the day, it's kind of all for naught. And you said general audiences are probably going to tune out about 20 minutes in. I think they're going to stick around a bit longer than that, but it's not what we would expect. And unfortunately, given the caliber of the man behind the camera, even the cinematographer and the cast, it is pretty underwhelming.
I would dread to see the finish rate on this film. This would be the worst finish rate of a Netflix film. Dead set. Now, look, I actually had Gary Oldman, up there without watching the film as a prediction for, because he's just
trust you haven't even watched the movie and you're going to predict it.
I'm clouded because I watched him in Leon, and he was phenomenal. So I've just thought he's got to be up there. But anyway, after watching his performance in this, very disappointed, Jackson. One of the big takeaways for me, very disappointed his performance. I don't know if it was all him. Unfortunately, the narrative or the true story, real story, he's just always drunk in pretty much every scene, and he's just a bumbling voice that is hard to understand for me. And I just didn't feel for this character. I didn't find him enjoyable when he was on screen. I actually liked Amanda Seyfried's characters. Thought she was the standout of the film by a mile. And also, is it Christopher from Game of Thrones? What's his
Charles Dance?
Yeah, so he was also pretty good for me.
You're off by a country mile. No surprise.
Yeah,
there.
I'm off by a country mile. And I also had this pinged as the Oscar contender for Best Picture, but now after watching it, I just can't see it winning. All bets are off now. I'm not betting on this film to win anything except sound, editing, mixing, and it has a chance at cinematography and a couple of other things. But yeah,
it's got a chance at Best Editing. I mean, anything directed by and supposedly led by David Fincher is going to at least have a crack, right?
Yeah,
there are some directors in Hollywood that the kind of term director worship really resonates with, and one of them for sure has to be David Fincher.
Well, it's like Quentin Tarantino. You haven't even watched the film; he's nominated for a screenplay. He's automatically nominated. So, I just was disappointed with Gary. What did you think of his performance?
For me, he was one of the big standouts.
Well, there you go. Okay,
easily. I mean, the man is one of the best chameleon character actors, you might even say, in the game today. And as I said earlier, there's hard to imagine anyone else playing this role and hitting the tone perfectly in just about every scene. He's in pretty much every single scene. We say true story, but it's a contentious topic because we're not really sure what the true story is. I mean,
Yeah, I was going to
this
mention
whole
that.
this whole idea that Orson Welles had apparently stripped this script from Herman J. Mankiewicz, who, after penning Citizen Kane, would never go on to do another script. And yes, he did win an Oscar before tragically passing away in 1953. I mean, really, this kind of story only popped up after Pauline Kael in the early 70s wrote an essay, Raising Kane, which later joined the Citizen Kane book, which featured her essay. It's about 50,000 words, so it's book-sized on its own, and the shooting script for Citizen Kane, written, of course, by Orson Welles and Herman J. Mankiewicz. And it was Pauline Kael who called Orson Welles the greatest loser in Hollywood history, and basically stripped this guy away and said what he's done is take a script which he contributed no dialogue, no nothing to it, no words, and took it away from Mank, and this is the result. But even that's been kind of a contentious debate over the last 40, 50 years since that was released. And sure, if you watch this and you've done some of this homework and you have it in mind, you might get it. If you've seen Citizen Kane, you might get it. But this is another movie, a bit like I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which had a Pauline Kael impression, that it's like, do we have to do this much homework just to understand or just to get it, just for it to resonate? And I believe that on not even just general audiences, but more educated viewers such as yourself and me, it is probably too much. Why do I now have to go watch 16 video essays just to really wrap my head around everything? And I mean, it's great that people are inspired to write about these topics. People, if Citizen Kane truly is one of the greatest or the greatest movie ever made, that now people are inspired to go out and write many, and not just this movie, but there's Archeo, I think it's called Archeo 181, which is a TV film from about 30 years ago, and other stuff as well. It's great that they want to go out and tell this story in a different light, and the behind the scenes of Citizen Kane is just as impressive as the movie, but it's got to have something interesting. And sadly, the disjointed nature of this story makes it really hard to care. And many of the characters, other than Mank, just don't feel all that fleshed out, and you don't really care because they're just all old Hollywood types who sit around, get drunk. And I get it. I get it. It's, it's like the underappreciated screenwriter. And Mank not only wrote Citizen Kane, or at least was credited for it, but he actually wrote parts, if not the entire Kansas sequence from The Wizard of Oz. But since he was contracted as a script doctor, his name never appeared on that. And if you're a creative type and you kind of feel for someone in that position, great, but you're probably not going to feel it after watching this movie.
Do you share that sentiment that, you've seen Citizen Kane and it gets thrown around as the best film ever made? No film is the best film ever made. We all know that. It's, everyone's got their own opinion.
That's right, unless it's directed by a CN.
Where does it rank for you? Is it that 10 out of 10 film that you were hoping for?
Time has been both very kind and also a little harsh to Citizen Kane. Watching it through today's lens, and I only watched it for the first time in the lead up about a week prior to watching Mank, you understand immediately how it is such a seminal film. Very much like the works of Tarantino, the entire movie is non-linear, the perspective jumps around, there's no one true narrator, everything's a bit unreliable, and there's different stories being told. So if you were a 1940s audience member watching this, or even someone in Hollywood in the 1940s, you'd think, oh my God, Orson Welles has come through here and has completely shaken up the game. And in many respects, the movie does feel very fresh, despite being now coming up to 80 years old. In many respects, it even feels fresher than Mank. The cinematography is amazing in Citizen Kane. Really?
Wow.
There's on the director title card for Citizen Kane, not only does it mention Orson Welles, but he's included on the same title card his DP, his director of photography, Greg Toland, because right there, you understand that just how much the art of film and light is going to play in that movie. By the same token, though, there's like a good 15, 20 minutes that's basically just a big exposition dump all about Charles Foster Kane, who's Randolph William Hearst. not a big switch there, other than the name. There's just a big exposition dump about his life told through a newsreel. And watching it today, that was pretty patience testing. Maybe not as patience testing, though, as this 2 and a bit hours.
Now, Jackson, I put my review out on my Instagram, and I actually called it Fincher's worst film. Big call, big
Whoa!
call. Now, I haven't
Whoa!
seen the game,
Have
so
you seen Alien 3?
I have, and I actually believe it's a better film. I'm a big Alien fan, though, so I can look. If you want to give that one a pass, okay, but let's throw Alien out. This is his worst film because, and I'm happy to stand by it. It was a chore to watch. I found it a chore to watch. After about an hour and a half sitting there, I'm thinking this is like homework for a school. Like you said, I'm about to write an essay on this, and maybe that would be good and productive for students of film or any sort of student to watch this and dissect it and write an essay about it. But as an audience member, it just left me very disappointed. Is the word? So I don't. And look, pretentious film club. He called me out and he said, "There's no way this is Fincher's worst film." Unless someone's deleted Alien 3, Panic Room, and Benjamin Button from existence. And
You could
I
you could
understand.
argue that Benjamin Button is his worst, or it could be someone's least favorite.
Hey, you know what? Benjamin Button's probably second worst for me, in front of Mank. I said to him, you know, we usually agree, mate, but I think you've gone insane for giving, because he gave this an 8 out of 10. I honestly thought he'd gone insane. 8 out of 10 is just way too high for this, in my opinion. But yeah, look, even though, Benjamin Button, Alien 3 and Panic Room, he's got a point. I see it. But personally, this is at the bottom of my list. I've got to be honest. I'm always honest with you guys. And for me, it just didn't hit.
What's at the top? What's
The
what's your
top for
favorite,
me,
or a couple of
I've,
your favorites of
I've been
David
thinking, and it's a
Fincher?
battle between Gone Girl and Fight Club. And it depends what day you get me. And I'll say it's Fight Club, I'll say it's Gone Girl. It's a battle between those two at the moment. For you, what is it?
It's probably Fight Club.
Yeah.
You could definitely put Seven up there though,
Oh, Seven.
because
Seven's phenomenal as well. Yeah.
You can't watch that movie and not be shaken by Seven. It's just not. It's not possible.
Yeah, I gave it an 8. I've got to go back.
It's massive.
It's a 9, at least a 9, 7. That was fantastic. But yeah, I don't know. Can I ask you, where would you rank this film? Would it be at the bottom or not?
I don't believe it's at the bottom.
Okay.
I was still entertained. Okay,
Okay, you
I
were.
understood watching this movie just how difficult anyone who hasn't seen Citizen Kane was
Yeah,
going to
it's
grasp
just
it. Like, I'm
there's no,
like, even then, having watched Citizen Kane, there's still a lot about 1930s Hollywood and the politics going on there, and
yeah,
truly the politics of LA and California that you've got to understand. And the fact that back in the golden age of Hollywood, screenwriters, directors, stars, they all had contracts with these big studios. The studios ruled everything, which you could say is still similar now. But when you were contracted, you went and did something, and you had no choice. It's not like stars where they can jump around and go from this project and that project today. It's all about the studios back then, and that's who held the power. That's how Randolph William Hearst, being a big media and newspaper conglomerate, held the power. Thus, we get Mank writing about Citizen Kane. And if that tickles your fancy, great. But the people that might have been really interested in this movie, they've probably all passed away here in 2020.
exactly, and it's a very niche film, and I've got nothing wrong with niche subjects. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but look, this is a terrible example, but just bear with me. um, Eddie the Eagle.
That's a really bad example.
I know. Eddie the Eagle is about what is it, skiing or whatever it is, and it's
You
a
can't
niche.
even tell us.
I don't even know, whatever you call it, right? But I don't follow that. I don't have anything to do with that, but I still enjoyed the film. That's my point. You know what I'm trying to say. So, I don't think what I'm saying is it doesn't excuse it. Even if I'm not the even if I'm not the audience member they were looking to connect with, I don't think it excuses it. So,
The fact that this movie is shot to look like something of its time, it actually ends up being quite distancing, and it makes everything on screen feeling quite cold. I mean, the story itself isn't, and the screenplay isn't the best, despite it being quite pretentious. But as a result, we're just kind of left just watching things play and never really getting sucked into it. The movie happens, it ends, and that's it. And I mean, the story itself in real life wasn't a try-up for Herman J. Mankiewicz, and it doesn't really feel it here. Maybe spice it up. Give us something else interesting, I guess.
Before we get to that final rating, can I just ask you, do you know the scene that was shot 80 times or whatever it was? Do you know what that actual scene was?
Enlighten us, Dan Allen Movies. I don't have a clue.
Well, I don't know. I was asking you. I'm trying to figure it out because I'm watching the movie looking for it, and God, good luck with that. I wouldn't know, but going back to that, it is that's the one thing I'm thinking. Come on, Dave. Come on, mate. You're a freaking good director, but just settle down a bit.
Hey, if you can get away with it, we said it earlier. Director worship.
There'd be a lot of actors.
Some would argue it's a huge issue in Hollywood.
Be a lot of actors that just wouldn't put up with that.
Not even for David Fincher?
No, I can see someone like Denzel Washington saying, get effed. Yeah, he'll give 5-10 takes and that's it. He won't go. You think Denzel Washington's going to go 80 times? Come on.
I don't think Denzel Washington's going to sign on for the movie.
No, he's not. Not this one, but you know what I mean. Anyway, Jackson, give us your final rundown.
You've talked me out of it here, Dan Allen Movies. Throughout our conversation, we've docked a point. Going to come in the final rating for David Fincher's Mank, a passion project, a love letter to all things 1930s Hollywood. 7 out of 10 organ grinders monkeys. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the organ grinders monkeys, give the film another watch. Listen to the allegory spoken by Charles Dance, one of the better scenes in the film.
I've come in at a 5 out of 10 for this film, so smack bang in the middle.
Disappointing on your scale.
It was disappointing. It wasn't a bad film, but it was close to that. I'll tell you, it was closer to bad than it was closer to good. So very disappointed. Unfortunately, I wanted to love it. You know, I love David Fincher. Hasn't made a bad film, in my opinion. I like Alien 3. I like Panic Room. I actually like Benjamin Button. So, you know, this was the first one that actually left me disappointed. But I'm sure his next film, he'll blow it out of the water. He'll get back. Yeah, I want to see another gritty thriller like Seven. I really do. I think he's just...
Can we see
he's
that
so
next
good at
season
that
of
genre.
Mindhunter?
Say that again?
Can we see that next season of Mindhunter?
Selfishly, I don't want that because
we won't get a movie.
Show. I haven't seen the show, but it's probably awesome. I should check it out. Have you seen it?
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right, Jackson, thanks for joining me as always. Where can the listeners find us?
Listeners, viewers, for those playing at home, if you've enjoyed us here at the We Watch This Movie podcast, we'd love for you to reach out to us on our social media, here on YouTube, hit subscribe, leave a thumbs up, drop a comment. We want to hear your thoughts, your opinions on Mank and what else you'd like us to cover. Our social media, at We Watch This Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, even watch us on TikTok. He is at Dan Allen Movies. I am at Marshall on Film. We are out of time, and as a parting gift here in 2020, or is it 2021? Who even knows what day it is anymore? We want you to go out, watch Citizen Kane, DM us. We've got something waiting for you.